Hi, I'm Bob Mann, back from my holidays and chomping at the bit for episode 35 of Flickering Dreams. We're going to be looking at a whole smash of films today, including The Royal Hotel, The Miracle Club, Bottoms, The Last Rifleman, Dance First, Sly on Netflix, and Nyad, also on Netflix. This is Flickering Dreams.
Don't worry, that's over here. My girlfriend's in the background.
Trying to keep us awake, Scott.
Bing! Right, I am back from my adventures abroad and raring to go with a whole load of films we're going to look at. First of all, my thanks to Emma for hosting the last two episodes of this podcast. I did listen to them both avidly, and I learned lots of things. First of all, I was surprised how much Andy hated typist artist Pirate King. I think that's going to be very difficult when he next meets Carol Morley. And the biggest shock of all I learned was that Emma has not seen Succession. I mean, get thee to a nunnery.
I mean, if you want another shock, I don't think I've seen E.T. Just randomly there for you.
Oh, wow.
Sorry.
You have just blown my mind. You have just blown my mind.
I apologise.
Oh, man.
We need to do a feature, like we talked a few weeks ago about big films that we haven't seen. We need to make that a thing.
We will make that a thing, yes. Each week we do a confessional. Forgive me, Father, for I have sinned. Yes,
and your cinematic soul needs needs restoring.
Indeed,
needs saving.
So we're going to start by looking at a new film, the latest film out by Kitty Green, which is called The Royal Hotel. Who did I say was going to introduce this one? Andy, I think, wasn't it?
Two young Canadian backpackers are in Australia. They take a job as barmaids in an out-of-the-way hotel somewhere in the outback that's frequented by local miners. Being two attractive young ladies, they call some attention. Here's a quick clip.
We're on vacation. We should be on a beach somewhere.
We have sunshine and booze in a box. Let's put up with it for a few weeks. Make some cash. It'll toughen us.
So I actually saw this one quite a few weeks ago now at the London Film Festival, and I really enjoyed it. But I know from feedback elsewhere in this community that there were different views. What did you guys make of it?
Who's going first?
So I didn't manage to see this, sadly.
Oh, okay.
Okay, I'll jump in on this one. So I went into this one with very little expectation. I saw some of the trailer, but thought, this looks okay, I'll see what it's like. I thought to begin with, this was fairly solid. I thought that the performances from Julia Garner and Jessica Henwick were pretty solid. I had problems, though, however, the more it went on. And my main problem being that it didn't go anywhere. It was a case of these girls find this bar that they're working in the middle of nowhere. You've got these guys that are a bit rough. Some of them are a bit creepy. And it just sort of stays at that level for the whole time. You're like, something's going to happen. There's something scary going to happen. There's something rough and perhaps criminal or abusive that's going to happen. And the whole time I'm just like, this is just these girls working in a rough bar for the entire movie. I think there was potential, and it set up certain things with characters that made me think, okay, now it's going to kick in, now the drama is going to start up. And it did a little bit, but not really to any degree that left me satisfied. So for me, yeah, this was just a bit of a disappointment.
I can hardly not agree with you with that. definition, but it didn't really bother me. I just was entertained and engaged with the thing for the whole time, and there was a kind of a building element of kind of sexual threat involved, which kind of came to a head when some people who you thought were friends were maybe not so friendly after all. And I just really liked the way that drama developed, and it didn't need a big action-packed kind of event at the end for me. I just found the whole thing really quite engaging. Maybe it was just because I saw it in a packed cinema at London Film Festival, and that made a difference. But I remember this one getting a round of applause at the end, which some of the London Film Festivals did not. So I, as I said to you via social media, did I see a different film? Because I was really engaged by this one. I thought the performances by the two actresses were not just solid. I thought they were really, really good. And Jessica Henwick has been in a number of different films where she hasn't really impressed me, but here she really did. So, and Andy, you saw it as well.
I know
didn't you?
this is based on a true story, but I'm with Scott on this one. I actually wrote down in my cinema diary, "This goes nowhere fast." Frankly, there were times when I was bored because it was all too predictable. It was all too obvious what was going to happen, and even what happens in the final scene, you could kind of see it coming. And I just felt it was a wasted opportunity to do something really good, really dramatic, with some good performances. Absolutely, as you say, Jessica Henwick is great, but I really felt that it was all a bit too obvious. It was all a bit too easy. It was all a bit too simple, and really didn't go anywhere. And frankly, I wasn't sad when it ended because I just thought, well, okay, that's another film ticked off, and it hasn't stayed very well in my memory. I haven't given it a second thought other than writing the review after I left the cinema. I just think it went nowhere fast. I just think it was two girls in a bar, group of guys, cause some problems, let's walk away, end of story. No life to it. No real zest. Yeah.
It's a short film as well, isn't it?
It's a short
only
film.
About an hour and a half with credits.
Yes,
93 minutes, I think, Scott. Yeah.
I mean, that's always good. That's always good for us older
But
folks.
it felt longer.
I mean, the only bit of the film I really didn't like was that last 2 minutes of the film.
It's the only bit of the film I did like.
Because I just didn't think the actions were fair, and we won't go into details without dropping spoilers. But I just didn't think it was fair what happened there and what they did. But I
can agree.
Scores on the doors. Scores on the doors. I gave this one a solid 8 out of 10. Scott?
I gave this one a 5 out of 10.
Okay. And Andy?
5 out of 10. 5 out of 10.
13. So that's 18 divided by 3 is a 6 out of 10 for the Royal Hotel, which on our scoring system makes it a marginal miss. What a shame. I'm going to have to show it to the illustrious Mrs. Mann when it appears on streaming and see what she thinks. Okay, we are moving on to a film next, set in Dublin in 67. And this is the Miracle Club. And in the Miracle Club, we are engaged in a planned trip to Lourdes on a pilgrimage, but that's disrupted when old family disputes come to the surface. Here's a clip.
How are you, Chrissy?
My mother is dead. I'm in a place I swore I would never come back to. Hi. I wouldn't have recognized you.
40 years would do that to you.
I'd say, yeah, mixed.
Yes, but it's great to have her back. Marvellous. Bloody marvellous.
So, as you see there, quite a stellar cast involved in that. It's got Maggie Smith, obviously now getting to be one of the old dames of British cinema now that we've lost Diana Rigg, and Glenda Jackson, and Kathy Bates, and a young actress in her debut film, in fact, called Agnes O'Casey, who I thought was very good indeed, and Laura Linney, who is a solid actress at the very best of times. Am I the only one who's seen this one?
No,
Has
I've
anyone
seen it.
else seen it? Oh, you've seen it
I've
as
seen
well. Okay. Give me your views then, Andy.
I thought this was a lovely quintessential British movie that in a couple of months' time we'll all be settling down with a cup of tea on a Sunday night and a biscuit and enjoying it.
Yeah.
I just thought it was just enjoyable from start to finish. Lovely acting, as you say, by a stellar bunch of actresses. Good story, good character development, lovely score. I just thought it wasn't hilariously funny, but it's amusing. I got a smile on my face within the first 5 minutes. I had a smile on my face all the way through. I came out with a smile on my face. And I just thought it was a really lovely story. It's a story about faith. So obviously that was interesting from my perspective. It's a story about obviously going to Lourdes, but it's more about a story about restoring broken relationships, as you might have picked up in that trailer. So I think it is a quintessentially British film that is really enjoyable. It's not going to, break box office records, whatever, but it's a nice, enjoyable time. And as I say, I think when it turns up on BBC One on a Sunday evening during the winter months or whenever, people will really just curl up with it and enjoy it. I really thought it was really good.
Yeah. I mean, coming back to your arguments about the Royal Hotel, I don't think an awful lot happened. I don't think an awful lot happened in this film. And
no, but there's great. Can I just? Sorry, there's great character development that happens. There's no character development in the Royal Hotel for me.
Well,
but with these,
you
there's
say that
characters, you come to care about them.
Yes, but the story as it evolves, again without any spoilers, it's all pretty obvious where it's going to go and where it's going to happen. So I quite agree with you. It was a lovely little film, and the cinematography was lovely. I think Lourdes looks like a place you really want to go and visit, whether you're religious or not, because it just looked spectacular in this film. And there is one particularly very touching point in the finale of the film. Again, no spoilers. Which was really, really, really nice. Yeah. Very predictable, but really, really nice. And actresses were great in terms of what they did. Some of the supporting roles were really nice as well. For me, it's worth going to see this film just to see Maggie Smith be a backing singer on a 60s. What was the 60s song she sang?
I can't remember.
He's so fine. Yeah, he's so fine. And Maggie Smith is there doing the doo-wap to doo-wap in the background. Worth seeing the film for that moment.
Oh, absolutely.
Alone,
I have to say, it's 5 or 6 weeks since I've seen it now, because I saw it at a press screening. I think I went into the Royal Hotel with more expectations of something dramatic, exciting. I think I went into this, The Miracle Club, knowing really what it was going to be like. So I didn't have such high expectations, but you just sat back. It's nice. It's comfortable. It's like putting on a comfortable jumper, with those actresses and the story and the way it plays out. It's just nice and comfy and warm and snug. And I just had a lovely time watching it, which I didn't do with the Royal Hotel because I was expecting something more.
Right. The only thing that kind of grated a little bit on me was the accents, because what Maggie Smith sounds like, and what I always want to call her Kathy Burke, but that's completely different person. Kathy Bates, what Kathy Bates sounds like, and although their Dublin accents were kind of okay, in my head I still had them speaking their normal accents, and the accents kind of got a little bit in the way, particularly of kind of the intelligibility, I think, of some of Maggie Smith's lines as well.
Yeah, I'd take point taken.
And the other thing,
I mean, they obviously solved that problem by having Laura Linney having lived in America for however many years it was. Anyway, she didn't have that problem, did she?
Indeed, but I thought Laura Linney, she often plays very, very similar characters in many of her films, and this was another cookie cutter Laura Linney. It's a slightly slightly perturbed, slightly offish kind of American character. So in some ways, I would like to see Laura Linney have more range in some of her roles that she picks. But there you go. So I might have been rather sniffy on this, but I gave this one a 6 out of 10.
Okay, I gave it an 8 out of 10 simply because it was nice and comfy and cozy, and it was like pulling a blanket around yourself and just
Okay, well that again makes the maths easy. So that's a Flickering Dreams score of 7 out of 10, which makes it a marginal, instead of being a marginal miss, a marginal hit for the Miracle Club. Okay. Next up, we have something completely different, and this is the film Bottoms. Scott, can you introduce that to us?
I can try. Bottoms is a film that is set in a high school where a couple of unpopular lesbian students set up a fight club. Here's a clip.
I'm gonna expel you both for committing a crime against
Jeff! Get out of the car.
You can't tell me what to do!
Get out of the freaking car!
We were just practicing for a self-defense club.
So it's like a fight club?
Yes.
just stay in your lane until you're munching beaver at Wesleyan.
Yes, sir.
Oh dear. Go on then, Scott. What did you make of this? I remember your comment on the WhatsApp group with 3 letters, WTF.
Yeah, I made a comment immediately after I left the cinema, just thinking, what did I just watch there? This was one of those films where I watched the trailer and thought, this might be funny. It's sort of high school, sort of American high school comedy, might be a bit crass, but generally looks like it could be funny. I came out of this thinking, this is supposed to be a comedy, but I don't know if I'm just too old for it. The humour just did not land for me at all. I found...
Heaven help us, Bob.
It was way too silly.
Wait. No, say wait till Andy. Wait till you hear what I've got to say about this.
So for me, it was way too silly. The characters I thought were really annoying. The writing and direction overall just had me thinking this needs more passes, or I'm just not the right audience in the slightest. And it's probably the latter, to be honest. I thought the performances from our leads, Ayo Edebiri and Rachel Sennett, I thought they did well with what they had. I do know that Rachel Sennett is credited as a co-writer on this, so for my criticism of the writing being bad, she has to take some of the blame for, I assume, her own writing and whoever else she wrote for. This one for me, right, it's the kind of thing where there's stereotypes, it feels like a parody of a high school comedy, but a really bad parody. It's like you get all the high school football players that are all the tough jocks and they're really annoying and really childish. And it's one of those things where the whole time they're walking around in their kits. They don't have to be playing football. They're just in class. They're out everywhere. It's like the cheerleaders in Glee. There's no reason for them to be wearing their kits all the time at all. It makes no sense whatsoever. And then
you find that funny?
No.
Did you find that funny? That's part of the joke.
Again, that's the parody part that I was like, no, I'm not feeling it. I'm just not. And it all builds up to that last scene, which I won't talk about, but I just thought, I really hate this. This makes no sense whatsoever in the slightest, anything that's going on. The concept feels like it should have been a lot funnier than it was. I just couldn't buy into it as much as I wanted to.
Oh dear. I mean, I have to say, I'd like to say that I really, really enjoyed this because I went to see it with a packed audience of very much younger people. But this was an example at the Salisbury at Everyman where I was the only person in the cinema to watch this. It was a house to house, very nice, thank you, Mr. Bridger moment. Right, turn the projector on now, watch the film, and I laughed a lot. I did find this one really funny. I mean, it is like the bastard love child of Booksmart, Polite Society, and a genetic splash of Anchorman in there, in terms of the way in which it is kind of blended those different themes. The closest one of those I thought was to Booksmart, which is one of my favourite comedies, I have to say. This didn't have the same smarts as Booksmart did. It didn't have the same acting talent. It didn't have Caitlin Dever in there, for example, who walks away, I think, with Booksmart. But I think these two young leads, I thought they did a good job, particularly, well, no, I wouldn't say particularly Rachel Sennett, but both of them I thought were good, and they made me laugh. Yes, the humour is very ribald, and I think there are lots of running gags, like the fact that everybody wears uniforms all the way through. There are some fantasy elements where, like, people smash a bottle or a test tube to attack somebody, and then you cut the scene and it's actually just a paper book or something. So there's various things that kind of drop into that, not entirely consistently, I have to say, that those kind of fantasy elements. And it is remarkably violent in terms of what happens in this Fight Club. I mean, it is like Fight Club. There is a lot of blood spewing around. The one moment where that went over the top for me was in one particular incident of boy on girl violence, which I thought was just sickeningly over the top. And you probably know the bit I mean, Scott, or maybe you can think of two or three. But there's one thing in particular where I went, "Oh God, no!" Right, that was really unnecessary. But overall, I think the package worked, and I can see this appealing to an audience, particularly of younger people than me. I mean, maybe it reflects my mental age, the fact that I enjoyed this one so much. 17 on the inside here somewhere, I think. But no, I enjoyed it, and it was just that fact that the violence went a little bit over the top that kind of made me kind of downrate it from being a film that I kind of really recommend to people. So I get this. Yeah.
No, I was just going to jump in quickly as well and mention that you guys probably don't know who the teacher was that came in to help them, that they got on board as well. But that is a guy called Marshawn Lynch. Now, I know him extremely well because he used to be an American football player. He was a running back and a very controversial character who didn't like speaking to media, got into trouble, always getting fines. Oh. And I didn't know he'd move into an acting career, but when I saw him, I was like, wait a minute, that's Marshawn Lynch in a movie. This very big, very famous American football player. I was like, I don't know if he's good or not. I thought, actually, probably he had some of the funnier lines. And we see at the end, when they're doing some bloopers, that there was a lot of sort of ad-libbing going on there.
Yes.
And I'll be honest, actually, that bit at the end with the sort of bloopers reel, that was probably funnier than anything in the movie for me.
Yeah, agreed. Definitely agreed on that one.
Have you seen it as well, Emma? I'm sorry.
Yeah, I went to the unlimited screening of it. And,
right.
Yeah.
What's your take then?
I'm with Scott on this one. I sat there for like the first half, and I was just seriously, like, I don't very often think, you know what, I'm going to go and leave. Just get out. I don't care anymore. Very, very few times does that happen, and I was so bored through the first half. And to be quite honest, you know, I like the gratuitous violence movies, and so once it started sort of kicking off a bit, I was like, well, you know, at least this is a little bit amusing. And but I found the characters annoying. I found just most of their actions completely ridiculous, even for a ridiculous take on, you know, a teen movie. I don't think it didn't commit. Like I say, it's listed as a comedy, and some people were finding it amusing in the screening, but I don't think I mean, you were the only one there, though, weren't you?
I was going to
Didn't
say,
you
Bob was the only one there.
Everyone in my screening loved it.
Everybody in my screening thought it was good. Yeah.
But yeah, some people were laughing, and I was just like, you either need to like fully commit to it being that comedy take on a teen movie, Fight Club-esque, or you need to make it slightly darker. And I don't think it had quite got the balance right for me. Yeah, I quite like the very ending, where, again, I mean, a bit ridiculous, completely ridiculous, but I quite like the way they'd done that. And I'm like, oh, you could have done with a bit more of that. Maybe sort of peppered through earlier in the film, and I might have had a slightly better feeling about it. Maybe.
Well, isn't the film wonderful, the fact that we can have one film and such different views on it? Yeah. In fact, most of what we talked about, we've had differing views. I gave this one a 7 out of 10. Scott?
So my notes here, I wrote down 5, but just as I'm speaking about it, I'm going to change my mind. I'm going to say 4.
Okay, 4. Emma?
Yeah, I'm a 4 on it as well.
4. That's 15. That's made the maths easy again. Thank you, guys. So that's 15 divided by 3 gives a Flickering Dreams score of 5.0, making it a definite miss. Although I don't think so.
Maybe my Big Fat Greek Wedding 3 would have scored higher if they'd had a blooper reel at the end.
Maybe it would. The whole film was a blooper. Yeah, indeed. Before we press on, let's just look at the top 10 films in the UK and Ireland at the moment. At number 10 is Some Otherhood, which has been out for 4 weeks. It's made a total box office of 2.2 million. I don't know whether we've discussed that one on this show. I think some of you have seen it, haven't you?
I gave it a 6.
No, I think Andy did, yeah.
I gave it a 6. It just didn't appeal to me at all. I just couldn't get into it. Yeah. But again, maybe younger people, like you, Bob, would have enjoyed it.
Who knows? Right.
Yeah.
At number 9, 7 weeks in the chart, is The Creator, which I certainly rate as a good sci-fi movie, nice and original. It's made 6.9 million, which is a decent sort of return. At number 8 is a film we probably would rather forget. 5th week in the chart for The Exorcist Believer. That's made nearly as much as The Creator. It's made 5.9 million. So
did
there
I
you
see
go.
as well that's already available to actually stream for free?
It is,
on
yes.
Services.
Yeah, I noticed that, Emma. Yeah.
Yeah,
wow.
I was really surprised.
Yeah.
Whereabouts that?
What's it on? It's on some. Is it
I
Mubi
want to say
or
Netflix? No, it's on a mainstream.
Oh, is it
one.
Amazon?
Really?
I can't remember. I did see it, yeah. And then I
I'll
passed
have
it
a
by.
search on my other screen.
Yeah,
Seen it once, that's enough.
Yeah. First week in the chart goes in straight at number 7, so some people clearly like it, is Bottoms, and that made 226k in its first week, which is not a lot of money, but
that
decent.
was an expensive cinema ticket, Bob, then? If you
It was. Wasn't just me. And number 6, we've got wonderful film, The Great Escaper, which I saw just earlier this week with Michael Caine and Glenda Jackson. Absolutely loved it. Thought it was terrific. Gave it 9 out of 10. Yeah. And I know you rated that one as well. 5 weeks in the chart. That's made £4.5 million, which again is quite decent.
Good.
Beating all of those is at number 5, Paw Patrol, the Mighty Movie, The Power of the Youngster. And that's been out for 4 weeks and has made £7.2 million at the box office, which is pretty good. Higher even than that, at number 4, we've got Taylor Swift, The Eras Concert, which I wouldn't count as a movie.
We had this discussion, and I told Andy we're not counting it as a movie.
So I haven't
Good.
seen it, so
The,
I
the
don't
box
really
office-
tend to see it, if I'm honest.
The
But
box
thank you,
office
Emma.
chart.
Yeah, you're right.
The box office charts seriously do count it as a movie. Clearly, I mean, misguided, I would say.
Yeah.
But that's made 11.7 million quid. Not
that
quite the top film in terms of money making. Killers of the Flower Moon is at number 3. Again, film I saw at the LFF, loved it. 10 out of 10 for me. And that made £7.8 million at the UK box office. So enough people willing to sit for 3.5 hours to give it that sort of revenue, which is interesting. And number 2 is Five Nights at Freddy's, which I know I heard you say, Emma, that you went to see it in packed screenings last week. That's made 8.7 million quid. And what's the number 1, do you think? 3 weeks on release. My grandkids went to see it this week. It's the Trolls Band Together.
Yeah, it's fantastic, Bob.
3 weeks, yes. I heard you give it a 10 out of 10 again.
It's amazing.
We're going to have to limit your 10 out of 10s. Yeah, we're going to have to have 2 doctors sign off your 10 out of 10s before you give them, I think, Emma. But that's topped all of the films in the list in terms of money making. That's made 12.8 million quid at the box office, which is pretty good. So that's the top 10 for this week. We're going to move on to look at a film out on Sky, which is The Last Rifleman. And this is a very interesting film. Emma, do you want to introduce it?
Yes. So, World War II veteran leaves his care home in Northern Ireland to go and celebrate the 75th anniversary of the D-Day landings. Here's a clip.
Hang on.
You are quite the soldier, Mr. Coffar.
Look, that's me.
17 years out of date, sir.
We all have our expiry dates.
I'm 92 3/4 years old. Well past my expiry date.
It's in our blood. Smuggling soldiers.
Those 3 musketeers.
So, hang on a minute, says Andy. Quite right. I've actually seen 3 films in a row, which kind of make a trilogy. I saw The Great Escaper on Monday. I saw The Miracle Club, which has old folks going to France. And last night I saw The Last Rifleman, which, as you see, has Pierce Brosnan as a rather dubious 93 3/4-year-old, or is it 92 3/4, going to the Normandy landings. Now, as has been commented on, this is based on a true story. And guess what? It's based on the same true story.
A very familiar one.
As The Great Escaper. And you have to kind of question how this happens. Now, I can imagine that news article about the guy, can't remember his name now.
Bernard Jordan, was it?
Yes, Bernard Jordan. Yeah. Well done. The news articles about him going to France for the celebrations sparked interest in 2 script writers who thought, oh, this would make quite a good film. And they both started developing work as they went along. And those scripts got turned into productions and greenlit and developed. But surely at some point in this process, the 2 production companies must have heard this other project going on. And I guess it's the same as happens in Hollywood, that you've got like 2 Snow White films happening at the same time in parallel, and various other situations where you get these films developed in parallel. And you'd like to assume that there's no skullduggery here, and that one has kind of got the up on the other production company and said, oh, we can do this, and then we can stuff Michael Caine and Glenda Jackson into it, or we can do this, we can stuff Pierce Brosnan into it. I did have a little look on the wiki pages of the 2 films, and it looks as if this film, The Last Rifleman, actually had its gestation before The Great Escaper. But it's really curious, isn't it, how this happened? Emma, what did you make of the film itself?
Well, having seen The Great Escaper, it was all very familiar, but they have at least done a completely different take on what they're putting on the screen. So, Great Escaper is based on that actual gentleman, and this is just sort of an adaptation of that story. So there were the differences which did help it. However, there's no getting around the fact that Pierce Brosnan got aged up 20 years. And
22 years.
22 years.
Yeah, he's 70.
And 3/4.
And 3/4.
And he's just so bad at it. Like, I love Pierce Brosnan, but that was some of the worst acting I have seen. Like, you'd get a really good bit, and like the very opening I found quite emotional, that sort of sets him off on his journey. But then you get to the bits where he's having to be a doddery old man and being 70. He's not quite at that Michael Caine stage of acting.
Michael Caine
his age.
Michael Caine is acting his age.
Yes.
I just found it really distracting, because, I mean, being such a big actor, he's not that old. It's quite obvious. And like I say, I just found that aging acting rather awful.
That was distracting for me. I learned to kind of put that to one side and think, well, that's the criticism, but I'm just going to go with it. And on that basis, I thought it was quite a nice film. I must admit, I did enjoy the film end to end in terms of what it did and how it did it, because where I think it differs from The Great Escaper was The Great Escaper built its story partly around the relationship between him and his wife, who was left at home while he went, and partly with two kind of subplots that were dropped into the story. The one about the black Afghan or recent was it Afghanistan he was injured in? I can't remember. There was that subplot, and then there was the subplot of the friend he meets, played by John Standing, on the boat. And those two kind of subplots kind of filled in the story a little bit, whereas The Last Rifleman really focuses on his journey, actually, whereas Michael Caine just kind of pops up, gets on the bus, gets on the ferry, and he's there. Right, most of the story here, because it's actually set in Belfast, or it starts in Belfast, most of that story is to do with him getting to northern France, and I found that really quite interesting enough as a story, without necessarily needing subplots.
Yeah, that did add some pretty good characters. Like, he meets on the coach to get to his ferry, he meets a young lad who's going on his own journey, and they form a little bond. And I thought that partnership was really great. And I thought that's really sad that actually you get to the point and then that's it. You lose that character. And that added a lot of credibility to what was happening, and, just the way they were interacting, old and young. I think that really did help it. So I was a bit sad to see him go. And then you're looking at I absolutely despised the newspaper reporter.
Yeah, that bit felt very much underdeveloped. It was it felt I don't know whether you saw the recent ABBA the movie revival, which revolves around an Australian reporter trying to get an interview with ABBA and running all around the screen until he meets them in a lift at the end.
Yeah.
This had that kind of feeling that it kind of didn't really go anywhere particularly in terms of his involvement in the story. He was just plain annoying, I thought.
I don't see why. I was just going to say, I don't see why he was always so angry about everything. Like, it had no bearing on what was happening at all.
Yeah. The character I did like was the mother on the ferry, who is played by Clemence Poesy, who, of course, was Fleur Delacour in the Harry Potter films many, many years ago. I thought she delivered a quite nice little performance in the film. So, I mean, it's not going to win any awards or anything. And as you say, Pierce Brosnan, and I know there are some great fans out there of Pierce Brosnan. A friend of mine who runs the Harbour Lights cinema, the Picture House Cinema in Southampton, he's such a fan of Pierce Brosnan films that they have an annual Bros Fest where he and some friends get together and they binge watch Pierce Brosnan films. So here's a new one from Pierce Brosnan to add to the list there. I mean, it was okay. Once you get over the fact he's not 93, then it kind of works. I mean, to be honest, that'd have been better if they set the film 20 years earlier, and he was a 70-year-old with health issues trying to get to the 2004 Remembrance
Can I just say,
Service.
conversely, I've not seen The Last Rifleman, but looking at that trailer, that makeup job on Glenda Jackson is incredible. In The Last Rifleman. She looks stunning.
Yeah, doesn't she? Yeah. Not her, Andy. No.
No, okay.
That was Clemence Posey, anyway. Yeah. I did have a score in my head for this, but your kind of discussion has kind of maybe edged me down. I was going to give it a 7, but actually I think I'll probably give it a 6. I thought it was a perfectly pleasant watch without being miraculous. Emma, what would you give it?
Yeah, I've gone 6 on this one as well.
You've gone 6 as well. So that's for The Last Rifleman, available on Sky or Now TV in the UK, starring Pierce Brosnan. That's a 6.0 Flickering Dreams score, which makes it a marginal miss. We're all over the place at the moment, aren't we? Hits and misses. It's although mostly misses, I have to say. Yeah, I think Miracle Club's the only marginal miss. I think we've got our black hats on today. Next up, we are going to look at a film called Dance First. I see this as a Sky original production. Is this... It's the rats. It's the rats in Emma's house. Is this available on streaming or is it in cinemas as well, Andy?
I saw it at the cinema. I think it's coming to Sky within the next couple of weeks.
Okay,
but
right.
It is. You're right. It is a Sky original production, but I saw it at the Cineworld this week. Yeah.
Okay, and you're the only one I think who's seen this one.
Okay, this
So
is a very enjoyable biopic of the life of Samuel Beckett, as told by Samuel Beckett, talking to himself. It all becomes clear. Trust me. Here's a clip.
Gestapo. Go.
The important thing is not what we write, but how we write. We must write dangerously, Beckett.
Even in that horrible place, they couldn't turn off the stars.
So it certainly looks stylish in terms of its black and white photography and kind of what it looks like. Yeah.
It's also remarkably short. It's 91 minutes, which is something I loved. We have a very concise biopic. So we start with Beckett being about to be awarded a literary prize for Waiting for Godot. And he gets up on stage, he takes the check, the Nobel Prize for Literature, climbs up a ladder with everybody watching in the auditorium, and ends up in a big sort of cavernous auditorium where he meets himself. And it's his alter ego. The two, they have a discussion about their life. So one says, do you remember when we were going out with so-and-so? And the other one says, yes, I do. That was a mistake, wasn't it? Well, maybe it wasn't. And then we get a flashback. So the film is told is divided into chapters. It's only 91 minutes. It's very stylishly shot, as you say. I thought Gabriel Byrne was fantastic. A few years ago, I went to see Waiting for Godot here in Milton Keynes with Sir Patrick Stewart and Taria McKellen. And I actually got to chat to them afterwards, after the play. Waiting for Godot is a very enigmatic play. You know, you can spin your own interpretation on it. This does help, this film, explain something of the writer's motivation. I thought it was really good. I thought I was going to be bored stiff going in, I'll be honest. I thought seeing a biopic about a guy who, you know, wrote an enigmatic, is famous for one particular play that's very strange and weird. I'm going to be bored. But the way they set it up with him talking to himself and reviewing his own life, and one part of his personality saying, well, that was a good time, wasn't it? And another part of his personality saying, yes, but I wish I hadn't done that. That kind of thing. This inner monologue. I just thought it was super. It's 91 minutes. You know, compare that to some biopics we've seen recently. Oppenheimer, Stand Up and Take a Bow. This is concise. It's short. The scenes are very short. Each scene is introduced with a chapter heading. And the man did lead a fascinating life. And he was part of the French resistance, as we saw in that clip in World War II. He led a fascinating life. And the film, go see it. It's really good. I thoroughly enjoyed it.
I did see today when I was preparing this podcast the review by Robbie Collin in the Daily Telegraph, who said this bizarre Samuel Beckett biopic is a quiet disaster and gave it 1 out of 5.
Mark Kermode said he loved it. Mark Kermode said he really enjoyed it. So it's obviously dividing opinion.
Yeah, I think Robbie Collin is probably in the minority there, looking at some of the other comments. But
I just thought Gabriel Byrne playing himself against himself, having this inner dialogue where he's disagreeing and agreeing, and I'd forgotten that, but I remembered that, and so on and so forth. So it's quite a clever structure to the film, really cleverly structured. The black and white photography only enhances certain moments, particularly when he goes through periods of depression, when he's in the war, when his relationships are falling apart. The black and white photography really enhances the mood of the piece.
Mm-hmm. It's the whole thing in black and white.
Whole thing's in black and white. Yeah. Start to finish.
Okay.
I thought it was he had a controlling, manipulating wife who he tried to leave many times and never did. Never did. Well, there you go. The illustrious Mrs. Mann. No.
I couldn't say.
I'm not saying that either. She's lovely. I've never met her, but she's lovely.
She'll be. She'd be mad.
Seriously, go see it. It's a really interesting biopic, and it doesn't outstay its welcome at 91 minutes.
Okay.
You know, if it had been any longer, it would have got possibly a little bit boring. But because it's such concise storytelling, you hardly get a chance to breathe almost. But it's good.
Score out of 10?
I gave it an 8. I really enjoyed it.
So just based on Andy's score, that's a Flickering Dreams score of 8. I might have to watch out for that one. I'm still catching up on films after being away for 4 weeks. So
and there's a whole new lot out this week as well.
Yeah, I know. And there's a lot coming out in the next couple of weeks for sure. So that's a Flickering Dreams score of 8.0, making it a hit for Dance First. And we've got about 12 minutes to the top of the hour to review 2 more films, both on Netflix. The first of these is a documentary called Sly, and I think we all know who that's going to be about.
Another prolific biopic here. We reflect on the career of Sylvester Stallone in Sly. Here's a clip.
Who is this man, Sylvester Stallone? Artist, writer, poet, performer. How does that happen?
I had given up on acting. I was done.
He wasn't cast in things because he was deemed uncastable.
The rejection was my encouragement. At that point, I knew my fate was determined on the pen.
The genius behind that. This was not an accident.
This was not an accident. Love Arnie. I love Arnie. I mean, would we call Sylvester Stallone a poet? Maybe that was pushing it a little far. Emma, what did you think?
You know what? Genuinely, I was seeing some of the clips and I went, whatever. Sylvester Stallone, Mr. Action. I was blown away by his story. I did not I knew some of it. I knew, he obviously had written in the beginning of his career, but to hear him talk about it, I was just like, my jaw nearly hit the floor a couple of times because I'm like, I can't believe this is who you are. Like, literally, all I know him as is an action star, really. Obviously, over the last 30 years or so, that's sort of my wheelhouse-ish for Sly movies. But listening to him talk so passionately about writing, about how he dealt with his family issues, and how he dealt with the fact that, as we saw in that clip, like he wasn't getting cast as things because he was just pushed into a stereotype. It was just so interesting, and having put it on because I was like, I'll see some action, maybe some backstage clips of fun stuff happening. I was enthralled. Like, I normally, if I sit and watch things like this at home, I'm doing other things like maybe tidying up or just whatever it happens to be. And when this ended, so I think it's like an hour, just over an hour and a half. And I hadn't, like, literally, I was just sitting there watching the television, which is unheard of. And it was just really very interesting and surprising. So, yeah.
No, I wasn't expecting you to say that. I've put this on the same.
Neither was I.
Put it on the same pedestal as Still, the Michael J. Fox film, in terms of interest. But there you go. Scott, did you see this as well?
I did see this one too, and like Emma, I really enjoyed it. I thought that having Sly basically telling his own life story was a really smart way of doing it, and I thought he came off really well and really intelligent, actually. The way he talked about his life, the business, family, I was very impressed. I think learning a little bit more about his childhood and some of his hobbies, I had no idea that he was such an accomplished polo player in his younger days. That was fascinating to me. Yeah, that was a great piece of information. And there's reasons that he didn't pursue that further, but I won't spoil that. And even learning about that side of the story and connections to his family were fascinating. We get some of the predictable things I expected. Like, we get a lot of the backstory of what happened in the making of Rocky, the Rambo films, the Expendables. Those are the three main franchises they focus on in terms of his film career. But they also dip in a little bit to the likes of Copland. Like Emma was saying, we see him cast in the early days in the Lords of Flatbush, and from there he was a bit typecast. But we see later in his career, something like Copland, they let him break out and do something a little bit different. They slag off Stop or My Mum Will Shoot, which I didn't quite like because it's a guilty pleasure. But never mind, I know most people don't like it. I'll admit it's not a good film, but I enjoy it anyway. But as a whole thing, I thought that, this was a very enjoyable documentary, much better stylistically than I expected it to be. So I was impressed too.
Great. I think it's just the two of you that have seen this one. So scores on the doors, Emma?
I'm going to give it an 8.
Okay.
I am teetering towards a 9, but I think I'll stick with an 8.
Okay, Scott?
Yeah, I was on the fence between 7 and 8. I'm going to go 7, but it's definitely worth a watch.
Great. That gives it a Flickering Dreams score of 7.5, making Sly a hit. I must admit, I shudder a little bit whenever anybody mentions Rocky, because I don't know whether you know, but I was on Pointless a couple of years ago, and I got through to the final round, and there was £10,500 in the kitty to win, and all I had to do was come up with a pointless answer for an actor in Rocky. Come on, there, guys. What would you have said? An actor in
Talia
Rocky.
Shire.
Yeah,
Talia Shire. That's what I said. 4 points.
Oh no!
Obscure ones.
Is that episode on Night Player, Bob? Because I'd love to go back and watch it.
I can
send
you a quiet link.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll send you a link to when I was on the Rob Brydon show.
Okay. So I said Talia Shire, which was 4 points, and Burgess Meredith, that was 5 points, but I didn't get the pointless answer. So there you go. It reminded me actually that Frank Stallone, who is Sylvester's either father or brother, was in the film, and that was a pointless answer. But I only remembered that after the event. It's fine when you're on the television with however many million people watching you that stuff goes out.
I'm going to get your autograph next time I see you.
Okay, yeah, I'll dig out a link for you for that. Our last film we're looking at is again on Netflix. It's a film called Nyad, which again was shown at the London Film Festival, but I didn't actually get to see this one. Who's introducing Nyad?
I'm taking this one, Bob.
You, Scott? Yep.
So another based on true event story that we've got tonight. Had a lot of those tonight. This one is based on a woman called Diana Nyad, who in her younger days was a successful long-distance open water swimmer. Now in her 60s, she basically sets a plan to achieve one of her life goals that she couldn't achieve in her younger days. Here's a clip.
Diana Nyad, world champion marathon swimmer.
The swim I want to do is 60 hours. That's Cuba to Florida.
Absolutely not. No. That's insane, Diana. You tried that when you were 28, and you did not make it when you're 28. You're 60.
I don't believe in imposed limitations. The only one who gets to decide if I'm through is me.
The top actresses there, aren't there? Annette Bening and Jodie Foster looking fantastic in that role. I think you're the only one who's seen this one, Scott. So sell it to us.
Yeah, I can do that. So, as you said, you mentioned the actresses, and I thought Bening and Foster were both excellent in this film. I don't know if it'll be Oscar consideration for them, but I wouldn't be surprised if one of them pops up somewhere during awards season. They were really impressive in terms of their performances. The story itself was quite fascinating. We see this underdog sports drama type story. We have a feeling by the fact that it's a film that exists. We probably know where it's going to go. But the journey to get there was really quite interesting. The determination of Nyad to achieve this goal in her later years, where I shouldn't say later years, that sounds bad.
Careful now.
Sorry, boys.
Tonight.
Oh, edit that out. Cut that. But the fact that she had her career back in her 20s, that she was doing most of this physical activity. Now she's in her 60s. She spent a few decades away from swimming, so it's not something she's conditioned to anymore. But she still wants to do this swim from Cuba to Florida, which no one's ever done before. And the experts have told her no one can do it, be that a young man or anyone. But she's like, nope, I'm going to do this. And so she takes her best friend, who's called Bonnie, played by Jodie Foster, asks her to be her coach, and sets herself into motion in terms of training to do this swim. Now, where it got to me that I started to lose, I don't want to say lose interest, but the middle act of this gets quite repetitive. We see that she faces many challenges to doing this swim, such as the currents, her age in general, things like sharks and stingrays, plenty of challenges in there. And we see her trying in very different ways to do this swim. And it won't really be much of a spoiler to say she didn't do it on her first attempt. So watching her go through the motions time and time again on this did get a little bit repetitive, and I was thinking, okay, it's quite interesting challenges she's facing, but we don't need this much. In a different type of movie, maybe in a previous decade, it would have been condensed into a montage, and I would have been quite happy with the inspirational montage going on in this section to cut out maybe 15, 20 minutes of that. When we get to the end, though, we get some inspirational moments. We get the emotional ending that we expect. And we also get some mixing of the footage of the real person, which I thought was really good. And also the casting was terrific. When you see the real people and the actors that they got to play them, I was extremely impressed with that. So, although it's a bit repetitive in the middle, overall, I would say this was a very good film.
Okay, great. There's been a number of good films about swimming, haven't there? There was The Swimmers from last year.
That was brilliant, yeah.
Oh, Burt Lancaster film, The
Swimmer.
That's going back.
Yeah. That's going back a long way.
Yeah, I know, I'm showing my age now.
The Swimmers was the one with the two Iraqi
Iranian,
girls, wasn't it? Iranian, was it? Iranian or Iraqi girls. And there was that wonderful document.
Talking of Rob Brydon, wasn't he in one about a synchronised swimming?
Oh, yes.
Group. I can't remember what it was called off the top of my head, but yeah.
Yes, the swimming team or something.
You need to watch the French one. What are they called? Shiny Shrimps.
The Shiny Shrimps.
The one with the Gay Olympics.
It's fantastic. Absolutely amazing.
Okay.
There was also that. There was also that wonderful documentary from earlier in the year called The Deepest Breath, which, if you haven't seen it, is definitely worth a look because it's just a phenomenal,
absolutely
phenomenal documentary. Yes. Yeah. Anyway, we digress. Scott, what would you give this one out of 10?
I would give this one another 7 out of 10.
7 out of 10 for Nyad on Netflix, which again makes it a marginal hit based on Scott's assessment.
Sorry, that Rob Brydon film was Swimming with Men.
That's the one. Swimming. I knew it had swimming or swimmer. Yeah, great. Any other business? I guess the big any other business news from today is that the SAG-AFTRA strike is finally over.
Yeah. Yay!
Right. You have to say, with the number of films coming out this month and really big chunky films, it doesn't seem to have made a big difference at the moment. But I dare say in a couple of months' time, as we move into the start of next year, we will start to see the effects of this significant lag in films. We've had so many films actually this week that I've had to shunt some out to next week. Give Me Pity was a film which I think Andy saw. I think 3 of you have actually seen Anatomy of a Fall, which actually comes out tomorrow. And there's also a new documentary called Loch Ness, They Made a Monster, which is coming out in Scottish cinemas at least tomorrow, which I've seen, and I've sent you guys the link to watch the screener as well, which again I would recommend because it's a fascinating story. So those 3 we will shunt into next week, together of course with The Marvels, Dream Scenario, what else is coming out tomorrow? The Killer. Oh dear, man, there's not enough hours in the day to see all these films. So that's any other business from you guys?
Just one bit of business, at the risk of being cut off early. Carol Morley and the cast and crew of Pirate, Arthur Typist King, whatever, are still on tour. Okay, they're in Chichester tonight. It's showing at various Curzon picture houses around the country as well. There's a screening next Monday at the BFI with a Q&A with Carol Morley. It's the film of the year. Seek it out. Travel 200 miles if you have to see it. Seriously, you guys need to see it if you haven't. There are screenings. I googled it earlier around the country, and there are special screenings all over she was in Sheffield last night. She's in Chichester tonight. So there's screenings all over the country where they're taking it on tour. But do look out for it, please.
Still, no commission there. No commission.
No, I don't care. I would sing the praises of this film till Kingdom Come.
The Flickering Dream podcast was sponsored by Carol Morley and typist, artist, Pirate King. Get some money out there in the green room, Andy. Come on, get some money.
I was quite happy being invited to the premiere after premiere party and mingling with the stars.
Who knows? Who knows?
It's not pointless level, but
who knows? Next Monday, you might even get into the green room. I mean, that's a dream beyond expectation.
I have an invitation to the green room.
Yeah. How did I know that? Yeah.
I might have mentioned
Okay, guys. Thank you very much. Entertaining show this week. My thanks to Andy Godfrey from Connect Radio and Sorted Magazine, Scott Forbes from the Forbes Film and TV Review on Facebook, and Emma Sewell from Emma at the Movies on X, as we should call it now. Still want to call it Twitter, but there you go. Right. Are you on Threads as well, Emma, now or not?
I have Threads. I used it on day one, and now it just sits on my phone.
Yeah.
Occasionally telling me someone's followed me.
Yeah, I've started posting my reviews on Threads, but I've no idea what happens to it. But there you go. Okay, thank you all, folks, and we'll see you again next week. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you so much for listening or watching Flickering Dreams. You can find the video version on YouTube and the audio version on all major podcast platforms. And don't forget to subscribe so you can get each of the weekly episodes as they are released. We'll see you at the movies.